And the reason I wrote it down here,
Yeah.
because this morning I was listening to Huberman's podcast. He
Yeah.
seems to be blowing up at the moment.
Yeah, good for him.
yeah,
He
he's
is not a Lex Friedman. He's an actual human being with ideas and thoughts and understanding and knowledge, expertise.
He had Mark Andreessen on, and it's a really good one. I like,
Great. I like both of them.
Yeah, I can listen to it for hours. But he was saying he has a list of things now. He keeps this list of things he knows he can't talk about.
Who? Hubie?
Yeah.
Well, Hubie's got a list, a banned list.
Yeah, he's got a list
I
of
have to
things.
drop Hubie a line.
I mean, you can hear it. He says a list of things he can't talk about or he won't talk about because he said of the way it may get cut for different vox pops.
Oh, come on. But he's just being a pussy. I mean, who, you can't take down the Hubester.
Hey, listen, I'm just.
He doesn't even work for anyone else. He works for himself.
I'm repeating the message he said. And he said it's a growing list.
This is part of the problem. We've got to grow a pair.
Yeah. But so with your podcast, are you essentially seeking his list? You want to
in a way, I think that we need if we end up in a better situation culturally and politically than where we are, if we avoid a scenario in which we are more and more divided into more extreme camps that understand each other less, if we are to head off the threats posed by the far right and the far left and grapple with the challenges that humankind faces, like pandemics and climate chaos and nukes and whatever, then it will be because we are less anxious about tiptoeing around subjects, less keen to jump down each other's throats, less eager to demonize other people's points of view, more keen to be as generous as possible towards other people's ideas, and more keen to have conversations that are uncomfortable. That's my general philosophy. So to the extent that prominent people like Huberman refrain from touching issues that they regard as being toxic, that is not a contribution.
Yeah, so I found it disappointing. Like when I heard it, I was like, well, hold on a second. There is self-censoring, but there's publicly admitting you're self-censoring. And saying you've got a list and it's a big growing list did make me think, there's a chance I avoid your podcast now. Because look, I know some people will self-censor to extent. I mean, do I self-censor? Possibly on certain very specific extreme issues I just don't want to get into because it's not in my world.
What are those?
What are the things I would potentially self-censor on? Okay, I own a football team. It has a men's and ladies team. I self-censor getting into I feel like sometimes people, when they're asking me about the football club, are trying to get me into conversations about maybe gender.
Right.
That I don't want to get into because I'm trying to run a football club. So
right.
Males, and I avoid having that because I think it's a trap.
Yeah.
I think someone's laying me a trap and they're trying to get me to a position where I can be cancelled.
Right. But doesn't it matter where that conversation takes place? If it takes place on your terrain, on your podcast for a duration, as long as you want it to, wouldn't you be able to do that?
I think it's different when I'm being questioned, when I'm doing it on the podcast, which is that weird world of like part media, part journalism, to being the chairman of a football club where I'm running a business.
Yeah, I see.
Let me just run that business. I'm going to focus on that business. I think that's like the only place. I might not talk about things because I think it's boring.
Yeah, well, there's lots, of course, that I don't talk about because I think it's boring or because I don't think it's worth focusing on, or there's an opportunity cost in talking about that when we could be talking about other things.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I'm not going to wade into, the precise nature of biological differences between men and women if I'm being asked a question on a panel show or something like that, which might be the equivalent of you acting in your capacity as the chairman of a football club. Like, there's a time and a place for everything. But I think there is no better time or place than on one's own podcast to broach sensitive issues. If we can't do it there, then we can't do it anywhere. And if we don't model those conversations for lay people who don't have the luxury of having podcasts with large audiences, then people don't get to see that actually you can try to wrestle with things in a constructive way without demonizing other people and ending up in fisticuffs. And so I do think it would be a shame if more and more people followed the Huberman route of having lists of things I don't talk